Well, hello, everybody.
Hello.
In case you aren't already aware, my name is Alexander White. I am the Assistant Director of First Year Courses. Today, we're talking Essential Skill 3, which is quantitative reasoning within the essential skills from CPE and the graduate profile and everybody like that. So today, we're basically going to go through some beginner steps of what the skill could look like within, math courses, right? Within that realm and how we can utilize it. We have a couple things that we want to do today. First off, I have the slide deck saved in case you ever want it through a QR code or a tiny URL. And you can use that at any point. There are actually some resources at the end. There was a slide that let me put a bunch of resources if I wanted to, and I just start putting things there. So if you need that, there's the link for it, and you can find the last slide to house a lot of those resources that we'll probably talk about and work with today. So there's that for you. Now, just to go over some quick goals that we have for today and what we want to try and do. First is that faculty will gain a better understanding of Essential Skill 3. I love this skill because my undergrad was in mathematics, and I would like to think that Essential Skill 3 is pretty cut and dry, like a lot of mathematics is, right? It's pretty straight to the point. Faculty will gain a better understanding of how to apply Essential Skill 3 to their Essential Ed courses, and then faculty will begin development of an assignment that can assess Essential Skill 3 or revision of an existing assignment to do so. And we actually, for that last one, have a paper that we can work through, and with it being a small group, we can talk through, and we have some examples to kind of show what's going on there. Now, in case anybody's unaware of what Essential Skill 3 is, it is our quantitative reasoning skill. I apologize, I'm just going to read the sentence that we got here in front of us. Essential Skill 3, apply quantitative reasoning skills to analyze and solve numerical problems. Graduates will hone their ability to provide solutions guided by data and choose the best methodologies for arriving at informed conclusions. Now, the indicators of masteries, those are at the milestone intermediate level, like it states. There actually is 3 different levels to these indicators. There's kind of like a benchmark or, coming in where we want them to be. A lot of times we like to say that that's kind of where, the freshman sophomore level should be for GSD 101. Since I work on that curriculum, that's kind of our goal in the first semester is get them there. This is the second, the milestone intermediate, and then we have finally a capstone level of what these would look like. But again, with what we want to do and where we want graduates to be, we want them to be at this intermediate level, this milestone level. And just to look at them, I mean, they're pretty on the nose of what we would think quantitative reasoning is, right? Like the first one illustrates contextual data using a variety of models, including equations, graphs, and tables. We know that you all use, especially in the math courses, all of those different ways to represent data. Pretty straightforward. Second, applies percentages and statistics to describe contextual data. A lot of times whenever I've read this and I've worked with this in the past couple of weeks, I like to think of, the contextual data as just what does this number mean in the grand scheme of things, right? Whenever I used to teach mathematics back in the day, I would ask my students all the time, when you got a number as an answer, did it make sense for the problem? And so that's kind of what's going on here. And then finally, utilizes a variety of quantitative strategies to articulate assumptions and solve problems. Now, to talk a little bit more about these, and since we have a small group, this is great. We can just have a little discussion. It's going to be awesome. One of the things that I noticed in the past couple of sessions that I've attended is that instructors and other courses on campus will look at these indicators and they think to themselves, where does the indicator fit within their course, right? Everybody teaches different amounts of courses, like the especially in mathematics, it varies the content. And so my question to kind of start us off and to be thinking about it, if you look at these indicators, if you only had to use one, which courses do you think would utilize each indicator? And there's no right or wrong answer. I'm just curious to know which courses do you think like, oh, I think this course could use that indicator within their room, if that makes sense. If I can throw that out to the space.
I kind of feel like for the, our Math 105 is really kind of hit in that middle there. I kind of feel like our stats classes are in between the middle, not quite hit at the, would you call that, the expert?
Well, so sorry if I have mislabeled this. All of these are intermediate.
Oh, okay.
And they're
Okay.
just three different indicators for
All right,
intermediate.
okay.
No, that's my apologies. I should have explained it better. So we just, what our goal is that a course can try and have one indicator within that course. And I would agree with you, like that first one that illustrates contextual data with equation graphs and tables. I think of stats 215, right? The like early entry stats class for
But they
element
also
2A.
do applies percentages and statistics to describe data. And then
Exactly.
they take it a step farther, any of our stats. And we're not quite looking at a variety of strategies, but looking at maybe one.
Yeah.
So,
I was wondering,
you know,
what do we visualize with utilizing a variety? Because a lot of our courses, they will use a quantitative strategy.
So I actually I had the same conclusion this morning, and I was trying to look to see, you know, well, what would that mean? And I actually, that's why I went to element 2A for like the gen ed courses to see what the element 2A would cover. And one of those was math 120 trigonometry. And my best example that I have for you all right now for that third one of the quantitative strategies is something along the lines of like trigonometric identities and how there's a lot of different ones, right, to solve a trigonometric identity that a student could essentially not pick the right, quote unquote, right or fastest route. They could pick any route, right? If they just know that cosine squared plus, you know, sine squared equals tan squared, like they can then kind of break that down. And that's kind of what that last one is, right? And I actually also have an example. I'm going to hand it to you early because I thought this is actually plays into something that I was going to talk about too. We'll go back to the front in a second. I'm going to hand you all this too, so you can have it. And, this is something I used in my geometry class towards the end.
we get credit for this competency, not completely.
So this is actually the back of it is something that like the one with the grid on it basically is something that I used in my geometry courses, the constructive response, which this response asks students to basically show the same thing in two different ways. Now, it's Pythagorean theorem and trigonometric functions. I don't know, I apologize. I don't know how close those things are within trigonometry, like how the math department teaches it. But this is just more of an elementary example of, hey, there's two ways to solve it. Like, I want you to show both ways and say which one is the better way in your opinion to do that. And then the other thing, and this is something that we should definitely talk about later. I just want to put this on your brain if that's okay, is at the bottom, there's a student generated rubric plus a peer review. And I know that everybody has to do essential skill 10, correct, of information literacy. And part of information literacy can go with that peer review, can go with understanding, like, if I did this problem, how would I think that this should be graded on what kind of rubric? So just kind of something to think about for later as you think about essential skill 10 as well. But for essential skill 3, something like this in a realm of either trigonometric identities that we were talking about, any moment that you ask them, hey, show two different ways to do the same thing. If that comes up within your course, that's kind of what that quantitative strategy goes with that last one. Does that kind of answer the question? I know it's long-winded. I get long-winded sometimes about it. And to kind of like, because I think this will help as we move along too, it may become more clear. I definitely would agree, Michelle, that like the first two definitely feel like a stats, like Math 105, like that kind of realm, because they are doing that. A lot of these things, I mean, you all are doing year round. And one of the things that I heard through the grapevine is that you all are kind of looking toward the end of the year assessments to assess some of these things.
So we usually use the final exam, and we kind of like to stay with that model.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love that idea. And one of the things I actually want to throw at you, if you flip the paper over, man, I'm so good at planning, huh? If you flip the paper over, one of the things that I did back whenever I was teaching K-12, and we could maybe utilize something like this, was this little text box at the top. I mean, we're math people. We've seen I can statements in every which way, shape, or form. But what may be interesting is if I hand an assignment that I know is going to look something like my final assessment, like my final that I'm going to have, maybe at the top I do just have a small box to show students like you're going to utilize a variety of quantitative strategies, literally copy and paste that sentence in a little box at the top. And it just helps that transparency with students so that when you get to the assessment at the end, they can say, yes, I've seen this statement before and I've done something with it before, because you do. I know you all do, and all of your courses do all three of these things ad nauseum, right? And it's just would maybe putting it at the top be helpful for students and to help make that connection for your end of year assessment?
If we, because we were talking about this earlier, if we had like a hypothesis test
Yep.
where there's really one strategy that you should use,
Right.
and articulating assumptions and solving the problem are a big part of that. But there's only one goal. Would you still think that that met that third requirement?
It may not, but it would meet the first two.
Yeah, and so that's what I was thinking. Again, that even if they started the problem, they chose proportions, and they may not have completed they may have some mistakes in there, but at least they would have met
Because
the competency.
wanted to. I think that that's the spirit of this, that they like knowing which quantitative strategy, because let's say they've learned realistically in
Proportions
that
and
class,
means.
like 10 or so different tools that they could use. Choosing the correct one.
Then now I'm totally picking up what you're laying down. Yeah, if the final assessment was,
But you could
here's
also
the
use
data set.
several hypothesis tests. If you put it in the phrase of a two-tailed hypothesis test, they could also use a confidence interval.
Yes, you could.
to
So as long as that's something that when you get throughout the year and you're saying a confidence interval, and as long as that little statement or you're somewhere there is something
So the
saying,
statement has to be where, just like in
I would-
lecture notes?
I wouldn't say it has to be anywhere, but I would encourage you to put it just somewhere where a student interacts with that content, whether it's on Canvas, like if you have an assignment on Canvas and it does this and you just put it at the top bolded. If you do, I love paper and pencil for math still, and I would just slap it to the top. You know what I mean? I would just put it on the top there and just say, hey, this is what this is, and this is what you are preparing for, because your final utilizes this same indicator. And but it's just a statement of that.
What about a question, because we actually have this, where they do the hypothesis test, then they also make the same decision based on the confidence interval.
Right.
Would that fit this?
100%, because it is multiple strategies.
Okay.
The thing, and I actually I think I get to this here in a moment, or I put it off to the side, I think, on my notes, which is that I literally, how I talked about like with trig functions with that last one, I did that for each one of these of like, well, what math course and what content, just as an example. And the middle one, I actually used Stats 270. And I just was like, well, this problem, or I should say, sorry, the first one. That's my apologies. The first one, I looked and I said, well, this is what this is, like contextual data, variety of models, where they're looking at, and this is really simplified, right? This is AP stats. So just a heads up, it's a little bit more simple, but they are being asked to create a histogram. And then in part B, describe the shape, but what would you approximate the mean? That's using the models, especially at an intermediate level, right? And especially if when they justify their choice, we could even reword that to say, answer with the context of what the data is, right? This is a history test. So the student, we would say, make sure to answer complete answers and complete sentences. The average, I believe, is this on the history test, right? On the other side of that is another example of, this is actually like finding p-value, right? Of a confident or of a hypothesis, right? Does the data provide convincing evidence that the average price of gas in any city is different from 406? And this goes with the middle one, because the p-value is essentially a probability, right? In all actuality, and when I compare it to that alpha level, that's what can go with the middle one as well. Thoughts about everything I said. Again, long-winded.
But to me, it's like that would also fit the last one here too. Because
Yes.
like I said, they could also do that confidence interval, they could do a hypothesis test.
Yeah.
And again, to articulate assumptions, solve problem, I mean,
Yeah.
you're doing a lot more. To me, applies percentages and statistics to describe, that's just like point estimation in my
Right.
mind.
It can, yes. And I would quote,
Say that the p-value describes data.
I don't think
Maybe
it,
that's just
Yeah.
me.
Yeah.
I
To
think
me,
it,
to me, that's just descriptive statistics.
well, and I think here I just really related to describe contextual data as like, well, in the context of like a hypothesis and concluding. Like that's what I had in mind. But I think yes, but I also think that it can be as easy as what you're describing. What I decided to do is take like harder examples and relate it to like harder courses. But I also agree with you that if it's just, these also are very simple and it's probably going to overlap to other areas
Because like
as
the
well.
math 105, it'd be more, you can be more basic.
Yeah, exactly. And like we said, like I feel like every example that I provided to you already, like we said, well, it can hit a lot of them. And it really is kind of.
That's gonna be more just concept, you're not gonna
Mhm.
do more.
And our goal is for you just to like for each course to have one indicator, right? I mean, if you have two, that's great, but the goal is for each course just to have one, and things of that nature.
Just so that I'm understanding,
Mhm.
what data do you feel like, so if I would, let me start again. If
Mhm.
I have a hypothesis test, I'm using that second indicator.
Mhm.
What data do you feel is being described?
What data I'm being described is basically just like,
Or use this problem, like what data
I feel like we're just describing kind of the data
that's given?
that's given, yeah, which is something we also talked about earlier, which was, well, where does the data even come from? Like, am I allowed to provide it? Something we talked about right before, which is, yeah, the data sets, we don't have to come up with new data sets and things of that nature. A lot of it could be provided. And yeah, and in the context of just the problem, right?
Okay.
The context of the problem. Does that answer your all's questions so far?
So, yeah.
I honestly, to be completely transparent with you all, I think it's going to be really easy, especially for the math courses, to align to these three because you all already do everything that is asked here at 100 times in a week, right?
Yeah.
I mean, these can be as simple, like we said, as like a point value, point estimate. I mean, it can be as simple as if an algebra class, Math 112, has a word problem that asks them to describe it in context, right? I mean, it's just, I feel like, I don't want to, I love to have the conversation of like, ooh, dream, what could it be? But
Mhm.
in reality, it also can be really simple and
To
easy.
me, I agree. I don't think it's gonna be, from our typical assessment questions, our competency, I think this is gonna be just at a very low level,
Yes,
I think we may not be competency, but we're gonna meet these standards.
yes, I would
And you
agree.
don't have to do all three.
Right, just as I said, I think we will,
Mhm.
it'll be easier for us to meet
Yeah.
these than we will our
Yeah.
competencies,
100%.
which is fine.
And I don't know, I think the like start menu is blocking the clicker.
Move it, cause they said that, and I knew it would do that.
Okay, now, so the select examples for 2A, Star, do you mind clicking on that document if that's okay? I also took a couple of moments, but we won't stay here long because we literally just talked about it all. So we kind of, this is just my thoughts that we were talking about a second ago as I wrote it down earlier, of just, here's the indicator, here's what course I think it would be, what the task would be, and then the communication to those students, right? And it's like I said, parallel to the documents that you have in front of you. The only document that you're missing, just as another example, and I'm just going to pass it out because I love to pass out paper because I'm a math teacher, former math teacher, and we love to pass it out and provide examples. Is just like this is a quiz I gave in my algebra class. Where, I mean, if you look at the third question, yeah. If you look at like the third prompt under the graph, it says find the equation of a line and slope intercept form that goes through these 2 points and has a y-intercept of -4. I mean, students can find the slope, they can do point slope, they could like do it in many different ways, which hits that third one. the different contexts. Because all the, like, if I found slope and then I just use that for y equals mx plus b, that's fine. Or I could use point slope and that's also fine. It's whatever is faster for you. So
So you see the utilizes a variety, meaning they pick one out of options.
I think it's optionality, yes. Like that they can pick optionality and they can show that.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
Different courses. I mean, there are some of those.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry, do you mind going back to the slides? But yeah, from what I can gather with the math degree and everything, like that is what I assume, that is what I am understanding variety to be.
Okay.
So yeah,
Not that they necessarily have to do two or more ways, but that they choose.
they can do it. They have the possibility of showing it two different ways. Now it may help out with the argument, right? If I have them in both ways, if I show them,
Mhm.
you know, hey, this is, I want, the question says part A is do this with point slope and part B says do this with finding slope and then using just y equals mx plus b. Like they could do that. Like I think that's also novel and not much more work for the student to do for that problem, right? They're already doing it and adding that extra part is there. Now, the worksheet that I handed out to you is what we're handing out basically every one of these sessions, where it walks you through basically the different parts of looking at an assignment or thinking about a new assignment and how, you know, what we're talking about can add into it. To talk through it, so, you know, part one, stay what you already do, like course name and number, right? If I'm going to do stats 270 or 215 or math 112, I'm going to put that there. Existing assignment, right? If you already have an assignment in mind that you already use, you know, I love that we're talking about hypothesis testing. We could just roll with that the whole way. If you've got a hypothesis test prompt that you hand every year out because you love it, we can put that down there. And then part two, essential skill you're embedding, that's quantitative reasoning, and so on and so forth. If we could, I would love to just have like you two just look at, you know, the first three parts. It goes until part 5, but I just want to do parts 1 through 3, mostly because I need to get a drink of water from my water bottle, but also so that you can, you know, think and think over what's on the page as well. Is that cool? Okay.
You have the assignment? No, the last one we did.
Yep.
Okay.
Oh, the 270 one, I can pull that up in just a second.
Or which?
I had the.
I love that you already have this.
The two.
Huh?
I love the already assignment picked out for this.
Lovely. I have the.
Yes.
Mhm.
I'm just, I mean, it's because I'm going to be in my conversation.
Oh, this is the 215.
There's something about like trigonometry, which I needed to use earlier, we got all three slow to each other, like, okay.
Hey, the math degree is doing something right now, huh? You mind if I peek over your shoulder and see what you're looking at?
Go for it. This is, oh, this is, no, just kidding. This is the method analysis. Okay. This is our current. And that's our rubric, but it's more complicated. So we have a set of questions where they have to pick the right procedure. So
Name that inference procedure.
Yes.
they have all the options here. And so we have a few of those. And then we have a hypothesis test or a paired t-test. And then we give them the confidence interval and have them interpret the.
Then make a decision based on.
Mhm.
Mhm. Okay, here, I'm moving around. Okay, I love that example, right? I think it's everything we've already been talking about anyway.
This question, I would like to be the third one, where they're doing the hypothesis test and looking at the confidence.
We just have to do one, I mean, it just has to meet one of these.
Yeah.
We
Right,
don't
each
have-
course just has to do one.
Doesn't that third one make sense? We.
The moment you've added the confidence interval, it meets that perfectly, because it is quantitative strategies, variety of them, right? Like
Yeah.
the
And
ways
it's
to do
so-
it.
Like, how should the hospital administrator's concerns be addressed?
Yeah,
Um,
and I mean, we only have to meet one, but really it does meet multiple, not all of them.
mhm.
But so is this an assignment is this the assignment or is this like an assessment?
It's these questions on the final exam.
Okay, so then, do you replicate these types of questions in like an assignment beforehand?
Yeah, they should have seen like on one of the midterm exams, they should have seen a problem.
Exactly. So then maybe on the midterm, like we saw with the one with the text box at the top, it just put you're about to utilize a variety of quantitative strategies. And then that way we're transparent with what like indicator we're using. And then the only thing here,
Just be honest.
I know.
Fine with that, like on worksheets
Mhm.
and on, in the notes.
Then we can put it on a worksheet.
I'm
That's fine.
good with that. It's just when you on exams and it's like triggered, oh, this is, you know what I mean? To me, it's
Yeah.
like, I want them to be able, here's a problem and just, okay, it's in a different format. They can,
Yeah.
that,
Then we
they
should-
would use
Then we
that.
can just put it on a worksheet or notes page.
Yeah, I'm fine, I don't
Yeah.
know, what's your thoughts?
Students are stressed out by the time they get to exams.
Yeah.
So I hate to put,
Do something that's.
I don't think it has to be done.
No.
reading or anything like that on the exam. Like, I give them the opening instructions before, because I want them to read it before
Yeah.
the exam starts,
Mhm.
kind of thing. So I try and keep it streamlined on
Yeah.
the exam.
Well, and a lot of this
I'm
too,
afraid it might be, that I'm gonna have to add more, I have to do something more than what
No.
I have been doing,
Yeah.
and to me, that just kinds of, it could just make people start second guessing
well,
themselves.
in you two, feel free to correct me if I'm wrong, but when they get to that portion of the assessment where you're basically saying, this is the artifact that I'm pulling to, look at how all my students are meeting this rubric row. As long as you have stated in a worksheet or in your notes page, like, hey, this is this statement, this is what we're trying to do. By the time you get there, we can keep that rubric row just to ourselves and know and see where students are at. I don't know how transparent that rubric row needs to be for the assessment. That's where I would defer to Star or Rusty. But in my mind, we're just trying to see where they're at with CPE. And, I agree with you that if you put something like that, they're going to second guess themselves, especially math students, because they're wanting to they're perfectionists and they want to
Yeah.
do really, really well.
Yeah, and they're trying to see, does this fit, is this addressing all of this, and I think it's gonna freak them out.
Mhm.
I mean, Allison's not here, she's our assistant person, but I would think, like, whatever it's time where you have to like show your proof, if you show like your exam with the question, and then you also have like one of your assignments that has like it listed somewhere in that assignment, and you just hand both of those in, it's still you showing that you've covered it, and then you're using that piece to assess what you did.
Yeah.
Cause I think overall, again, I said this the other day, if you're kind of talking about it through the whole semester, like that's the big goal, was that you're transparent about that you're gaining these skills, and then you're just using that assessment piece to test that.
Mhm.
I think we're trying to be really careful about what we tell people the standards are. So that's why if you hear us asking the same
Right.
question like 14 times, we just want to be really clear with what we need to do. And I think our faculty are really on board with teaching these skills, but keeping everybody on the same page of how that's going to look. I'm sure you can feel that.
A little bit.
And that's why like adding it as just a small statement to a notes page or one assignment. I mean, we want it to be as unintrusive as possible into the pedagogy that you're already using.
I mean, I could easily see taking this statement and put it in front of every chapter in the introduction. We are using quantitative reasoning skills in this chapter by blah, blah, blah. And to me, I mean, because every chapter is doing this.
Yes.
In a lot of our classes.
That's
You
one
know,
way
and
that
maybe, you know.
if I, because those notes could probably use a refresh
Maybe,
anyway.
absolutely, yeah.
And
To me, I was just like, add an
yeah,
intro about each one and how.
Yeah, and that sounds
Or
great.
at the end of it, even maybe at the end, maybe it make more sense, you know,
Yeah.
kind of at the end, it's like, you know, in this chapter, we used.
Yeah.
Quantitative reasoning skills and we did.
That's great.
the minimal burden that we can put on our faculty.
Yeah.
So that, cause you know how it is, there's a lot going on, so just trying to kind of make it as.
Yeah,
then
No, and I
like,
agree.
Tab projects.
Yeah.
Pop them on that.
Yeah.
I agree wholesale.
I don't know who did it, who Tab project it was, really good, I fell on the copy or not, it was.
Maybe Lance.
Okay. I don't see. Let me see that, like, I'm
Yeah.
still on.
Yeah,
As the least intrusive as possible, right? I like you all know, I've went through the K-12 system. I know how intrusive we can be with some of these things and how
Yeah.
omnipresent. And yeah, no, again, to what Star's saying and what we're saying here, we add it to a notes page and then your assessment does that at the end. And then internally, we look at that to say, all right, we lined it up. We have an assessment that we could look at if we needed to. This is it.
Because again, I personally, I mean, I think it hurts our assessment scores, but personally, I don't like to pretty much give them an identical assessment and then pretty much changing the numbers. And to me, I like for them to see something different and to be able to apply the knowledge they have in a different scenario. So again, I don't like for it to be, okay, I don't really want to have an exact assignment that's like this someplace
Yeah.
else, because I want to see, have they taken the information and apply it to a new scenario?
Yeah.
You know?
No, and I don't think it has to be the same assignment either, or even like, I mean, probably the same realm of information of inference, right? Like something like that, but the same data set, the same numbers, the same ask from it. Yeah, I think that absolutely can be different, you know, you have to copy and paste the question.
Well, I'm not even saying that, I'm saying even the same exact type of question. I don't really
Yeah.
even want to do,
I don't
necessarily want to have another practice problem that's the exact same thing. Okay, here's a paired t-test,
Mhm.
here's a confidence interval. Now I don't want one that looks just like that previously.
and I don't think you have to.
So.
Like, I think, like we've been saying, when you go to the notes page where you introduce each one of those individually, you can put that statement and then, be fine. So use the thing you already got.
Yeah.
For sure. Okay. And yeah, I think we answered, like, I know we kind of have been riffing off of this worksheet a little bit, choosing our own adventures, I would like to say. But I think we've added a lot to just kind of, reflect on this kind of, we already have the existing assignment. You pulled up one already that we've already talked about. We know what skill we're utilizing. The part 3 asks, what's one small adjustment? We already kind of talked about that. That's actually, if I can find it. I would actually maybe put it under other or add a justification for that. For like part 4 for write a new prompt, that mainly for us is not actually writing a new prompt. It's I'm putting more transparency within the notes page kind of deal. And then the rubric for assessment, you all probably already have a rubric for your final exam and for that assessment, which I think, and again, I will default to Star. I think rubrics in that conversation is not today, but probably more so later. So yeah.
Competencies be.
Let me move the slides forward just a little bit here.
Me, this is a little threshold of that. So to me, it's like if they they might get a 2 on that.
Did it
and
not
this might
change
be
still?
needing it here.
Oh, it did, but I just want to go. I want to like spam the button if that's okay.
Yeah.
Here's a question.
I love
So
it.
again,
Yeah.
like, for our competency is methods and analysis, right?
Mhm.
And so again, it's typically, 1 through 4. I
Right.
don't know if that's changing. But again, in order to get that through 4, they had to pretty much do everything right and get,
Mhm.
and, but to me, I can see them probably even getting like a 2 is gonna meet some of these competencies. On that, is that something we could do that make it that simple? And I mean, making sure the rubric lines up with that too, but to me, it's like, that
Right.
way it might just make that easier as we're grading for that part for, again, a 2 or higher meets this competency.
Right. And to kind of double back, and we've been in conversations about rubric rows, Trina and I'm referencing Trina, so please correct me if I'm misstating anything about what we've been. But yeah, I think that the bar for milestone for this would probably hit about at a 2 or a 3 on those kind of levels. I think you would, if you were to see the capstone language for the indicator, you would be, oh, that's what the 4 is
Yeah.
from the scale. Which is also something I talked about earlier. We're working as a small team right now to eventually help with that row for each indicator to say, we just need to meet one of these things. Did a student meet one of these things on a 1 to 4 scale? That also lines up pretty well with your competency rubric you already have. So we're trying to basically make them all play really, really well together. So that just makes your life easier. And that we develop something that you're where you're making the connection to it, that those connections are really easy and transparent. Am I saying that right, Trina? Okay. Yeah.
You have better, yours than it still sounds like we're gonna have to grade it twice from the way you're describing it.
That one is not an answer that I know.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
No,
I've limited knowledge I have.
The rubric in here, line up that we're at 2, and we just, make that to where that it meets these, and,
That would be, yeah.
I think we may have to tweak it.
And I would also say that the indicators, the rubric for each indicator, because you're only needing to meet one indicator, it's looking more and more like it is just one row, like one thing. And it says, are we meeting one of these?
Is that another way of saying that it's gonna be kind of binary? Either they do it or they don't?
Not necessarily. We
That's
toyed around with the binary idea, but we are definitely more aligned with that scale of 1 to 4 and to try and keep the language and feel of what the competencies are math is a little bit trickier.
So if it's a 1 to, so what level do we have to meet? I mean, I guess it depends on your rubric there to meet this milestone then.
Ooh, did
I
we?
didn't quite hear that.
To meet the milestone, the skill rubrics we've been making, did we make milestone?
Yeah,
4?
we're looking at milestone, we're going back to a 4-point scale.
Yep.
And so in the milestone, at the 4-point in the milestone, they would still, we're looking at language like always and consistently does this thing. And then 3 is like
Mostly,
always does
yeah.
this thing.
And then 2 somewhat, and then 1 is rarely. Does one of these things, which one of these things being one of the indicators?
Gonna be honest, I feel like we need those sooner rather than later because
Yeah.
the way that this assessment works, we would not be able to
Yeah.
get that granular.
Yeah.
Cause we're looking at them doing it once. And
Okay.
so the distinction between sometimes, rarely, and
Yeah.
always is hard.
Yeah.
If we're looking,
I mean, I could see that on like that first.
Well, we were-
Those.
yeah,
If it
that would
helps,
work.
if it helps ease your mind, I've got 2 things for you. If it helps ease your mind.
Love my life being eased.
There we go. The first is that we said always, sometimes mostly, some of those rows we're changing to accurately and precisely instead, because it only happens one time. So like accurately and then one of those, or precisely and then one of those. So it's not like an always.
Using language that makes sense within whatever that indicator is.
Right.
Sounds like we're looking at very well accurately where they're on target.
That's valid.
Yeah.
I think a lot of them were like accurately and clearly, for example.
Yeah.
You want both.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
but yeah, we're,
And to your point about like wanting them sooner rather than later, I think that they are very nearly there.
yes.
Okay,
Yes, I can confidently say, like, we are almost done, if not
We're
done.
almost done. I think they have to go to like Jennifer and Jade. And then it'll be,
bless you. I know
And
that's
then
so
you'll see my
important.
face again, because I helped out with the rubrics a little bit, and then we get to talk about it again.
I love it. I think, yeah, that'll be really helpful because, yeah.
Yeah,
What I'm hearing though, is that if we have a rubric like that, we're gonna have to grade all of our assessments twice. Once with the rubric potentially of the competency and once with the skill.
I don't know about
I
that
got a
answer.
resigned nod.
I don't know, you would have to ask somebody about my pay grade.
Make sure we get check. Nope, not the thing.
Yeah.
Right.
I think, I've not looked at yours closely because math. I think a lot of them are really close in language.
Okay,
And that's part of the reason they were pushing like for the idea of you being able to stack them. Because they were trying really hard to make sure that whatever was selected, the skill in that area aligned nicely or as nicely as possible with the already existing competency. So that they weren't so separate that you'd have to like reset your head for both reviews.
Yeah.
okay,
Yeah, whenever we had to do our work, we looked at both the entire time and made sure that they lined up.
And you can also, you can either ask Allison or,
Yeah.
because she's the one that's doing the cost of the star report and stuff too, so she's really the best one to.
I guess part of what I'm saying is, are you gonna find it interesting if we have the same numbers of 1, 2s, and 3s? Or both?
Like interesting.
Is somebody gonna-
bad.
No,
Is somebody
I think it's gonna be harder to get the criteria, get a 4 for the analysis and methods, but it's not gonna be as
That's
hard to get a
true.
4 here, so it's kind of like, you know.
So maybe we,
Yeah.
2.
You know, to me, it's like a 2 on our analysis methods will be like a 4 here. And then it's like
Yeah.
then we go from 2, but it's like half steps on down, you know,
Yeah,
that's how I see it.
Yeah,
we can do that.
and I'm taking, and don't worry, like the feedback that you all have,
Zeros for the others.
Yeah.
the feedback that you all have right now, Trina and I are making notes, like, well, we are gonna take
Yeah.
it back to them as well, so to make sure that we got it.
Well, then this might capture, because we've had this issue with some of these, the lower end better.
Yeah, that's what I said. Yeah, to me, this is gonna break down the lower end, was where
Yeah.
before we're just like, okay, 0 or 1.
But our 0s are one of relatively wide categories,
Yeah.
and now we can.
And now it's gonna be like, think of it as 0.
Yeah,
I'm on board.
Yeah, I think that,
I think that
that
actually. be
that
good.
makes a lot more sense
Yeah.
with what we're.
yeah, and I mean, we know, we've talked together, I mean, with math stuff, a lot of people and students are really, it would help to have that lower, as we have so many students that math takes a while to learn, like, it takes a lot of different strategies. To break it down, like you're saying, lower is gonna be better, like by grading it off and stuff, so, yeah. This is that last slide that I just want to point out real quick, if that's okay, where it has, like from the slide deck, all of the different things that we have today, plus some more that I didn't talk about, just for you to peruse through if you're ever feeling nosy about everything. We got the repository, the graduate profile page, essential skill 3, the example for element 2A. That's the page that I showed the table where we actually just talked about it before, and I didn't really show it at all because we talked about it before. I have an example rubric that I've been trying to utilize for language, just that I wanted to share to show, like, this is what in high school, it was a transfer task rubric, what in high school, the words that we use, because within our rubric, committee that we're in, I really tried to say, well, what are they getting out as freshmen of high school? Like, how do they What
What
did it-
language do they already have? that-
Yes. Thank you so much. Yes, I agree. The skill 3 assignment examples are all these things that you got today. So like the little pages here. And then essential skill number 10, examples by element 1 through 4. I wanted to include that because, you know, I mentioned essential skill 10. We're not going to talk about skill 10 right now, but I feel like, especially for math, where we're so really like honed in, like we can do quantitative reasoning. Sometimes, you know, skill 10 with that information literacy, it just make it a little fuzzy, I guess is the best way I can put it. Just to make sure that you can see examples and things of that nature. So yeah, that's what I've got. And I really love the conversation. It's always great to talk math stuff with you, Michelle. It's awesome to really like you know, get it hammered home. But does anyone, before we like stop the recording and anything, does anyone want to chat about anything else with skill 3, what we talked about today? Any other questions or concerns?
No, it's very helpful. Thank you. Alex.
Yeah,
Appreciate
thank
it.
you very much.
No, I just appreciate you all being here. So thank you. Yay, we did it. Yay.
Getting worse. At least it was on topic, right?